Hello, English learners. Welcome back to English in Minutes 2.0. I am Emma, your host for today. If you are new here, I'd love to tell you that we upload a new English learning video every single day on this channel, designed to help you improve your English faster, smarter, and with more confidence in real-life situations. In today's episode, you're not just going to improve your English listening skills, you're also going to expand your professional vocabulary, strengthen your workplace communication, and learn how advanced English is actually used in real office environments, because today's lesson is focused on a powerful and practical topic: advanced English conversations at workplaces. Throughout this video, we'll go through realistic workplace scenarios, meetings, presentations, team discussions, emails, problem-solving conversations, and professional small talk. You'll hear advanced words, formal expressions, and natural business phrases used in context so you can understand sentence flow, absorb professional tone, and start sounding more fluent and confident in your own workplace communication. Whether you're speaking with colleagues, reporting to a manager, participating in meetings, or presenting your ideas, workplace English requires a slightly more advanced vocabulary and a structured communication style. And by the end of this video, you'll not only understand these advanced expressions, but you'll also feel comfortable using them naturally in your daily professional life. Before we begin, make sure to subscribe to the channel and press the bell icon so you never miss another lesson that helps you grow your English fluency step by step. So, take a deep breath, get comfortable, maybe grab a notebook if you'd like to write new vocabulary, and let's step into the world of advanced workplace English together. Let's get started. When people think about workplace English, they often imagine that it is simply about speaking more formally, using longer sentences, or replacing simple words with complicated ones. But real advanced workplace English is not about sounding difficult. It is about sounding precise, respectful, efficient, and clear in high-responsibility environments where every word carries weight, because in professional settings, communication is directly connected to trust, credibility, and leadership perception. Imagine your first day, stepping into an international office environment. You may already know conversational English. You can introduce yourself, talk about your hobbies, describe your daily routine. But suddenly, you begin hearing phrases like, "Let's align on this deliverable," "We need more visibility on the timeline," "Can you walk us through your thought process?" And you realize this is a different layer of English, one that operates inside corporate culture rather than daily casual life. Advanced workplace communication depends heavily on contextual vocabulary, words that are not necessarily difficult in meaning, but powerful in implication. For example, instead of saying, "I think this is wrong," a professional might say, "I have some reservations about this approach." Notice how the meaning remains similar, but the tone becomes collaborative rather than confrontational. This is the essence of workplace fluency, expressing ideas without creating friction. Let's step into a realistic office conversation so you can hear this difference clearly. You walk into a team meeting, and your manager says, "Emma, could you provide a quick update on the client onboarding progress?" Now, instead of replying casually, "We started working on it," and it's going okay. An advanced response would sound like, certainly, we've initiated the onboarding process, completed the documentation phase, and we're currently coordinating with the compliance team to finalize approvals. Do you hear the structural difference? The vocabulary reflects clarity, sequence, and accountability. Now, let's slow this down for practice. Imagine you are giving this update yourself. Repeat mentally after me. We've initiated the onboarding process, completed the documentation phase, and we're currently coordinating with the compliance team to finalize approvals. Say it again. But this time, focus on the professional verbs: initiated, completed, coordinating, finalize. These verbs are action-driven, and action verbs are the backbone of workplace fluency. In corporate communication, verbs often carry more importance than nouns because they show progress, ownership, and momentum. For example, compare these two statements. The project is in progress versus we are actively executing the project roadmap. The second version signals leadership involvement, strategic movement, and operational clarity. Now let's expand this into a workplace scenario. You might face frequently reporting deadlines. Suppose a colleague asks you, "Will the report be ready by Friday?" A basic response would be, "Yes, I will finish it." But an advanced workplace response sounds more structured. "Yes, I'm on track to have the report finalized by Friday. I'm currently validating the data to ensure accuracy before submission." Notice how this response does two things. It confirms the deadline, and it communicates diligence. Let's practice this structure together in a guided paragraph exercise. Imagine your manager is reviewing project timelines with you. You say, "I'm on track to complete the market analysis by Wednesday. I've compiled the primary research findings, and I'm now synthesizing the insights into a presentation format." Now personalize it. Replace market analysis with your own task. Replace presentation format with client brief or internal report. This is how you begin internalizing advanced workplace phrasing. Professional English also relies heavily on softening language, especially when delivering problems, because workplace communication is solution-oriented, not problem-centered. Instead of saying, "The client didn't send the files," an advanced speaker might say, "We're currently awaiting the client documentation, which has slightly impacted our timeline." This removes blame, maintains professionalism, and keeps the focus on workflow rather than fault. Let's build a longer practice reflection around this. You are explaining a delay in a meeting. Try saying, "We experienced a minor bottleneck due to delayed input from external stakeholders. However, we've implemented interim measures to keep the project moving forward." Notice the layered communication: problem identified, impact acknowledged, solution presented. This three-step structure is extremely powerful in professional environments: situation, impact, resolution. Now imagine you're leading a discussion rather than just participating. Leadership language requires another layer of vocabulary, one that guides conversation direction. You might say, "Let's take a step back and reassess our priorities," or "I'd like us to explore alternative strategies before finalizing this decision." These phrases position you as collaborative, yet decisive. Let's move into another immersive workplace dialogue scenario. You're presenting an idea to senior management. You begin, I'd like to propose a process optimization initiative aimed at improving cross-departmental efficiency. Even if the idea is simple, the framing elevates its perceived value. Now expand that thought. Our preliminary analysis indicates that streamlining communication channels could reduce turnaround time by up to 15%. Notice the use of analytical vocabulary, preliminary analysis, streamlining, turnaround time. These are staple phrases in advanced workplace English. Let's pause for another embedded speaking exercise in paragraph form. Imagine you're presenting your own improvement idea. Speak internally. Based on our recent workflow observations, I believe there's an opportunity to enhance operational efficiency, particularly in the approval cycle. Repeat it again, slower, focusing on pronunciation and rhythm. Workplace fluency also depends on how you respond to feedback, especially constructive criticism. If a manager says, "This presentation needs more data support," a defensive response would damage professional perception. Instead, an advanced response sounds like, "Thank you for the feedback. I'll incorporate additional data points and refine the analysis to strengthen the narrative." This signals adaptability, professionalism, and a growth mindset. Now let's build a reflection practice around receiving feedback. You say, "I appreciate the insights. I'll revisit the report and ensure the recommendations are more evidence-driven." This type of response builds trust because it shows responsiveness rather than resistance. Another important layer of workplace English is meeting facilitation language. Phrases like, "Let's circle back to this later." "I'd like to open the floor for suggestions." "Let's consolidate our ideas into an actionable plan." These expressions help structure collaborative discussion. Let's place you inside a live meeting scenario. You're moderating a brainstorming session. You say, "We've generated several valuable perspectives. Let's now prioritize the most feasible solutions and outline next steps." This language demonstrates organizational leadership. Now repeat internally, "Let's prioritize the most feasible solutions and outline next steps." Focus on the phrase, feasible solutions. This is commonly used in decision-making environments. Advanced workplace English also includes professional reassurance. When a team member is stressed, instead of saying, "Don't worry about it," you might say, "Let's address this systematically. We'll work through the challenges, one step at a time." This communicates calm, steady leadership. Let's embed that into a supportive dialogue practice. A colleague says the workload feels overwhelming. You respond, "I understand the pressure. Let's reallocate resources where possible and ensure the deliverables remain manageable." Notice the emotional intelligence layered into professional vocabulary. As you continue developing workplace fluency, you begin noticing that advanced English is less about complexity and more about intentional clarity, tone management, and strategic word choice. And the more you immerse yourself in these structured expressions, the more naturally they begin appearing in your everyday professional conversations. As workplace communication becomes more advanced, another critical dimension begins to appear: the ability to manage conversations that involve negotiation, expectation setting, and professional diplomacy. Because in real organizational environments, people are not just exchanging information, they are aligning priorities, managing timelines, and balancing multiple stakeholder interests at the same time. Imagine you're part of a cross-functional project where marketing, operations, and finance teams are all contributing to one shared objective. In such environments, clarity alone is not enough. You must also communicate alignment, cooperation, and mutual accountability. You might hear a senior colleague say, "Before we proceed, I'd like to ensure we're all aligned on the deliverables and success metrics." Notice how this sentence does more than ask for agreement. It creates collective ownership. Now imagine you are the one leading this conversation. You say, "From my understanding, our primary objective is to enhance client retention while optimizing operational cost. Please let me know if this aligns with everyone's expectations." This phrasing invites correction without conflict, which is a hallmark of advanced workplace fluency. Let's slow this into a guided practice reflection. Repeat mentally, "Please let me know if this aligns with everyone's expectations." Again, but focus on the tone: collaborative, open, inclusive. This tone builds psychological safety in professional discussions. Expectation setting is another major area where advanced English becomes essential. Suppose a new initiative is launching and you need to communicate scope limitations. Instead of saying, "We can't do everything right now," you might say, "Given our current bandwidth, we'll be prioritizing high-impact deliverables in Phase 1 and expanding scope in subsequent cycles." This language reframes limitation as strategy. Now visualize yourself explaining a project boundary. You say, "To ensure quality execution, we'll be focusing on core functionalities first, followed by iterative enhancements based on stakeholder feedback." Notice how structured vocabulary transforms restriction into thoughtful planning. Let's build this into a practice. Paragraph you can internalize. I want to set clear expectations from the outset. Our immediate focus will be on delivering the foundational framework. Once that is stabilized, we'll gradually integrate advanced features. Repeat this internally, allowing the rhythm of professional pacing to settle into your speech pattern. Another common workplace situation involves negotiating timelines. Deadlines are rarely fixed in real corporate environments. They are negotiated, adjusted, and recalibrated based on evolving constraints. Imagine a stakeholder asks, "Can we move the launch date earlier?" A reactive response would create pressure, but an advanced response manages expectations diplomatically. You might say, "We can certainly explore an accelerated timeline. However, we'll need to assess resource allocation and risk implications before confirming feasibility." This response remains open, yet realistic. Now, step into a role-play reflection. You're responding to a client request. You say, "I understand the urgency surrounding this deliverable. Let me evaluate internal dependencies and revert with a revised timeline by tomorrow." This signals responsiveness without overcommitting. Advanced workplace speakers rarely say yes or no immediately. They create evaluative space. Phrases like, "Let me look into that." "I'll need to review this with the team." "We'll assess feasibility and circle back." These are professional buffer expressions, allowing time for informed decisions. Let's practice embedding one into a full response. Thank you for flagging this. I'll review the operational impact and reconnect with you once we've mapped the implications. Repeat again, focusing on the verbs review, reconnect, mapped. These verbs communicate action, even before the action happens. Now, let's transition into another high-value workplace communication skill: managing disagreement professionally. Disagreement is inevitable in collaborative environments, but tone determines outcome. Instead of saying, "I don't agree with this plan," an advanced speaker might say, "I see the rationale behind this approach. However, I'd like to propose an alternative perspective for consideration." Notice how acknowledgement precedes disagreement. Let's expand this into a structured discussion simulation. You're in a strategy meeting. You say, "While the proposed direction has merit, I'm concerned about scalability constraints if demand increases." This introduces risk awareness without dismissing the idea. Now repeat internally. "While the proposed direction has merit, I'm concerned about scalability constraints." This structure is widely used in executive communication. Another variation might sound like, "I'd recommend we conduct further analysis before committing resources at this stage." This shifts disagreement into analytical caution. Let's build a longer practice paragraph. "I appreciate the momentum behind this initiative. However, I believe additional data validation would strengthen our decision-making confidence." Notice the balance between support and scrutiny. Professional persuasion also relies heavily on evidence framing. When advocating for an idea, advanced speakers rarely rely on opinion alone. Instead of saying, "This strategy will work," they say, "Based on our previous campaign performance, similar strategies yielded a measurable increase in engagement." This grounds argument in precedent. Now place yourself in that advocacy role. You say, "Our pilot testing indicates a positive user response, which suggests strong scalability potential if implemented organization-wide." Repeat it slowly, allowing analytical vocabulary to settle naturally. Let's move into performance review conversations, another environment where advanced English becomes crucial. Suppose you are discussing your achievements with a manager. Rather than saying, "I worked very hard this quarter," you might say, "This quarter, I led multiple high-priority initiatives, streamlined reporting workflows, and contributed to improved turnaround efficiency across the team." Notice the specificity. Now convert that into a reflective practice. "I took ownership of the client transition process, ensured knowledge transfer continuity, and mitigated operational disruptions during the handover phase." This language demonstrates measurable contribution. Performance discussions also involve discussing growth areas. Instead of saying, "I need to improve communication," an advanced phrasing would be, "I'm actively working on enhancing stakeholder communication, particularly in high-visibility project environments." This shows initiative rather than deficiency. Let's embed this into a longer self-evaluation paragraph. Moving forward, I aim to further develop my strategic planning capabilities while strengthening cross-functional collaboration to drive more integrated outcomes. Repeat internally, focusing on forward-looking tone. Now let's explore workplace email communication, which requires a slightly different linguistic rhythm. Professional emails often replace spoken warmth with structured courtesy. For example, instead of writing, "Send me the file," advanced email, English sounds like, "Could you please share the updated file at your earliest convenience?" Notice the courtesy layering. Let's expand this into a full written-to-spoken hybrid practice. Hi, team. I hope everyone is doing well. I wanted to follow up on the pending documentation. Please let me know if you require any support in completing this by the agreed timeline. This format balances professionalism with approachability. Now imagine you are escalating an issue politely. You write, "I wanted to bring to your attention a recurring delay impacting project milestones. I'd appreciate your guidance on addressing this moving forward." This language avoids accusation. Let's internalize this through repetition. I'd appreciate your guidance on addressing this moving forward. This phrase is widely used in hierarchical communication. As your workplace English evolves, you'll begin noticing that fluency is deeply connected to emotional intelligence, not just vocabulary size, because advanced communication is not about sounding impressive. It is about making others feel informed, respected, and confident in collaborative progress. And as you continue practicing these structured expressions, your professional voice begins transforming from conversational speaker into strategic communicator. As you continue progressing deeper into advanced workplace communication, you begin encountering conversations that require not just clarity, but composure under pressure. Because professional environments are dynamic, deadlines shift, priorities evolve, and sometimes tension enters the dialogue. And this is where another layer of fluency becomes essential: the ability to communicate calmly in high-stakes situations. Imagine a scenario where a project is falling behind schedule, stakeholders are concerned, and leadership is requesting immediate updates. In such moments, basic language often sounds reactive, but advanced workplace English creates reassurance through structure. You might say, "We've identified the factors contributing to the delay, and we're implementing corrective measures to realign with the original timeline." Notice how this response does not deny the problem. It acknowledges it while immediately presenting action. Let's slow this down into a guided reflection. Repeat mentally. We've identified the factors contributing to the delay, and we're implementing corrective measures to realign with the original timeline. Focus on the verbs: identified, implementing, realign. These verbs communicate control, even in difficulty. Now imagine leadership asks a follow-up question. How confident are we in the recovery plan? An advanced response might sound like, while there are still variables we're monitoring, our revised execution framework positions us well to recover lost ground. This phrasing balances realism with confidence. Let's embed that into a practice paragraph. We've reassessed resource allocation, introduced additional review checkpoints, and strengthened cross-team coordination to accelerate progress. Repeat internally, allowing the layered structure to settle naturally. Another workplace situation that demands linguistic precision is conflict resolution. Disagreements between colleagues, departments, or leadership perspectives are inevitable, but how they are communicated determines organizational harmony. Instead of saying, "There's a misunderstanding between teams," An advanced phrasing might be, there appears to be a misalignment in expectations between departments. Notice the neutrality of the language. Now imagine you are mediating such a situation. You say, I believe both teams are working toward the same objective. However, there may be differing assumptions around execution strategy. This reframes conflict into interpretation rather than opposition. Let's expand this into a guided internal dialogue. To move forward productively, I suggest we clarify responsibilities, establish shared milestones, and ensure transparency in communication moving ahead. Repeat this slowly, focusing on collaborative verbs: clarify, establish, ensure. Advanced workplace speakers act as bridges, not barriers. Another critical communication environment involves executive briefings. When speaking to senior leadership, language becomes more concise, outcome-focused, and data-anchored. Imagine you are presenting quarterly performance insights. Instead of saying, sales increased a bit, you might say, quarter-over-quarter revenue reflects a 12% uplift, driven primarily by expanded enterprise partnerships. Notice the analytical precision. Now extend that statement. Additionally, customer retention metrics indicate sustained engagement, suggesting long-term revenue stability. This demonstrates strategic awareness. Let's internalize this through repetition. Customer retention metrics indicate sustained engagement. This phrase is frequently used in performance reporting contexts. Executive communication also requires anticipatory framing, addressing risks before being asked. You might say, while growth indicators remain positive, we're closely monitoring supply chain variability that could impact future scalability. This shows foresight. Now practice this reflective briefing paragraph. We've identified potential operational constraints, and we're proactively implementing mitigation strategies to safeguard delivery continuity. Repeat internally, focusing on proactive tone. Another advanced communication setting involves decision framing. Leaders rarely present decisions as commands. They present them as informed conclusions. Instead of saying, we decided to change vendors, advanced framing sounds like, after evaluating performance benchmarks and cost efficiency metrics, we've decided to transition to a new vendor partnership. Notice the justification layering. Let's expand this into a speaking exercise. This decision positions us to optimize operational reliability while enhancing long-term value delivery. Repeat slowly, focusing on executive rhythm. Now imagine you are communicating organizational change to your team. You say, we recognize that transitions can create uncertainty. However, this strategic shift is designed to strengthen our operational foundation moving forward. This balances empathy with direction. Workplace fluency also involves managing upward communication, speaking to senior leaders respectfully, while maintaining clarity. Suppose your manager asks for your recommendation. Instead of saying, I think option A is better, you might say, based on our comparative analysis, option A appears to offer greater scalability and lower implementation risk. This grounds your opinion in analysis. Let's embed this into a reflective paragraph practice. My recommendation would be to proceed with the phased rollout model, as it allows for controlled testing while minimizing operational disruption. Repeat internally, focusing on measured advisory tone. Another area requiring advanced fluency is client communication, particularly when navigating expectations. Clients often request expedited results, additional scope, or revisions. A reactive response might create friction, but advanced language maintains partnership tone. You might say, "We're committed to meeting your expectations, and we're currently evaluating how we can accommodate these additional requirements within the existing framework." Notice the balance between commitment and evaluation. Let's extend this into a practice scenario. To ensure quality delivery, we may need to revisit timeline assumptions. I'd be happy to discuss feasible adjustments with you. This keeps collaboration open. Now imagine delivering positive client updates. You say, "I'm pleased to share that we've successfully completed the initial deployment phase, and early performance indicators are highly encouraging." This communicates achievement with professionalism. Let's repeat the key phrase. Early performance indicators are highly encouraging. This is commonly used in corporate reporting. Advanced workplace English also includes the language of innovation and initiative. When proposing improvement, professionals rarely say, "We should try something new." Instead, they frame it strategically. You might say, "I'd like to explore opportunities to enhance process efficiency through automation integration." Notice the forward-thinking vocabulary. Now build this into a longer practice reflection. By leveraging digital tools, we can streamline repetitive workflows, reduce manual dependency, and improve overall turnaround time. Repeat internally, focusing on innovation framing. As your exposure to these structures increases, you begin recognizing that workplace English is not random. It follows predictable linguistic frameworks of reassurance, alignment, mitigation, scalability, and strategic intent. And the more you practice these frameworks, through immersive reflection, the more instinctively they emerge in your real professional interactions. Because fluency at this level is not memorization. It is pattern recognition, tone calibration, and contextual precision. And step by step, conversation by conversation, your professional voice evolves into one that communicates not just language, but leadership presence. As workplace communication continues to evolve at more advanced levels, another powerful skill begins to shape your professional fluency. The ability to tell workplace stories, not stories in the casual sense, but structured professional narratives that communicate progress, challenges, learning, and impact. Because in organizational environments, data informs, but stories persuade. Imagine you are presenting the outcome of a completed project. A basic communicator might say, "The project was successful, and the client was happy." But an advanced workplace speaker builds a narrative journey. You might say, "When we initiated the project, our primary objective was to streamline the client's onboarding infrastructure. However, during the discovery phase, we identified additional workflow inefficiencies that required strategic intervention." Notice how this creates context. Before outcome. Now extend that narrative. By re-engineering documentation pathways and introducing automated approval triggers, we were able to reduce onboarding time by nearly 30%. This blends storytelling with measurable impact. Let's embed this into a reflective speaking exercise. Repeat internally. By re-engineering documentation pathways and introducing automated approval triggers, we reduced onboarding time significantly. Focus on the storytelling verbs: re-engineering, introducing, reduced. Workplace storytelling is especially powerful in presentations because leaders want to understand not just what happened, but how it happened. You might continue. The implementation phase required close collaboration across compliance, operations, and client success teams, ensuring alignment at every milestone. This shows cross-functional leadership. Now imagine you are presenting this in a boardroom setting. You say, while the transition initially presented adaptation challenges, the long-term operational gains have positioned the organization for scalable growth. Notice the balance between honesty and optimism. Let's pause for guided repetition. The long-term operational gains have positioned the organization for scalable growth. This phrase is frequently used in executive storytelling. Another storytelling dimension involves communicating lessons learned. Instead of saying, "We made some mistakes," advanced English reframes learning. Constructively, you might say, "The initiative provided valuable insights into stakeholder communication gaps, which we've since addressed through enhanced reporting structures." This transforms error into evolution. Now internalize this reflective paragraph. One key learning was the importance of early-stage expectation alignment, which has now been embedded into our project kickoff framework. Repeat slowly, allowing a reflective tone to settle. Let's move into persuasive presentation language, another cornerstone of advanced workplace fluency. Persuasion in professional settings is rarely emotional. It is evidence-driven, structured, and strategically paced. Imagine you're advocating for budget approval. You might begin, "I'd like to outline the strategic rationale behind this investment proposal." This signals structured persuasion. You continue, "Our analysis indicates that this initiative will deliver measurable efficiency gains while strengthening competitive positioning in emerging markets." Notice the dual focus: efficiency and strategy. Let's embed this into a speaking exercise. Repeat mentally, "This initiative will deliver measurable efficiency gains while strengthening competitive positioning." Focus on persuasive cadence and controlled emphasis. Advanced presenters also anticipate resistance. You might say, "While the upfront investment is significant, projected long-term returns justify the allocation." This addresses concern proactively. Now expand this into a reflective narrative. By implementing phased deployment, we can manage financial exposure while validating performance benchmarks at each stage. Repeat internally, focusing on risk-managed persuasion. Another dimension of workplace communication involves stakeholder influence, the ability to guide decisions without imposing authority. Suppose you're influencing a peer department. Instead of saying, "You should adopt this system," you might say, "I believe adopting this framework could enhance interdepartmental coordination and reporting transparency." Notice the suggestive rather than directive tone. Let's internalize that phrasing. Adopting this framework could enhance coordination and transparency. This type of language fosters cooperation. Influence language often includes collaborative framing. You might say, "I'd welcome the opportunity to pilot this approach with your team and gather feedback before scaling. This invites partnership and shared ownership. Now imagine you're encouraging innovation adoption. You say, your team's operational insights would be invaluable in refining this initiative. This validates stakeholder contribution and builds trust. Let's build this into a guided reflection paragraph. By incorporating cross-functional perspectives, we can ensure the solution remains both practical and scalable. Repeat internally, focusing on inclusive persuasion. Now let's transition into advanced professional small talk, a subtle yet powerful workplace fluency skill. Professional small talk is not casual chatter. It builds rapport, trust, and relational comfort. Imagine arriving early to a meeting. A colleague says, "How has your week been so far?" Instead of replying simply, "Busy," an advanced response might sound like, "It's been quite productive. We've been navigating a few high-priority deliverables, but the progress has been encouraging." This maintains professionalism while inviting dialogue. Let's embed this into a speaking practice reflection. It's been quite productive. We've been navigating high-priority deliverables, but progress has been encouraging. Repeat slowly and keep your tone composed. Professional small talk often includes future-oriented optimism. You might say, "I'm looking forward to seeing how the next phase of the project unfolds." This signals engagement and forward momentum. Now imagine networking at a corporate event. You say, "I've been following your department's recent initiatives. The innovation focus has been particularly impressive. This demonstrates awareness and professional curiosity." Let's internalize this as a relational communication exercise. "I've been following your recent initiatives. The innovation focus has been impressive." Focus on a respectful, admiration tone. Another small talk layer involves transitional conversation. For example, before a meeting begins, you might say, "I hope everyone had a chance to review the pre-read materials. There are some interesting insights worth discussing." This bridges casual and formal dialogue. Let's expand this into practice. "I found the data trends particularly insightful, especially the regional performance variations." Repeat internally with analytical calmness. As workplace conversations become more advanced, you begin recognizing that even informal dialogue carries professional tone calibration, because every interaction contributes to professional perception. Now let's explore recognition and appreciation language, another advanced fluency marker. Instead of saying, "Good job," professionals say, "I want to acknowledge the effort your team invested in delivering this outcome. This feels more meaningful and intentional." You might continue, "Your attention to detail significantly strengthened the final deliverable." Notice the specificity and clarity. Let's embed this into reflection practice. "I want to acknowledge the effort invested. It made a measurable difference in the outcome." Repeat internally with sincere tone. Recognition language builds morale, trust, and leadership presence. As you absorb these storytelling, persuasion, influence, and relational frameworks, you begin transforming from someone who simply communicates tasks into someone who communicates vision, alignment, and progress narratives. And this evolution marks a major milestone in advanced workplace English fluency, because at this stage, You are not just speaking English, you are using language to guide decisions, strengthen relationships, and shape professional environments. As workplace communication advances further, conversations begin involving negotiation dynamics, not necessarily in the dramatic sense of bargaining, but in the everyday professional reality of balancing expectations, timelines, resources, and strategic priorities. Because in most organizations, progress depends not on individual authority, but on negotiated alignment. Imagine you are coordinating with another department whose deliverables directly affect your project timeline. You might hear a response like, "We're currently operating at full capacity and may need additional time to accommodate this request." Now, your role is not to pressure, but to negotiate constructively. An advanced workplace response might sound like, "I completely understand the bandwidth constraints. Perhaps we can explore a phased your delivery approach that allows us to begin preliminary work while your team completes the remaining components." Notice the collaborative framing. Let's slow this into a reflective speaking exercise. Repeat internally. Perhaps we can explore a phased delivery approach. This phrase is widely used in operational negotiation contexts. Negotiation language often includes flexibility signals. You might say, "We're open to adjusting our internal milestones if that supports a more sustainable execution timeline on your end." This demonstrates partnership rather than demand. Now imagine you're negotiating deadline extensions with a client. Instead of saying, "We need more time," an advanced phrasing sounds like, "To ensure the highest quality outcome, we'd recommend extending the delivery window by 3 business days." This reframes delay as quality assurance. Let's embed this into guided repetition. To ensure the highest quality outcome, we'd recommend extending the delivery window. Focus on advisory tone. Another negotiation layer involves scope discussions. Clients or stakeholders often request additions mid-project. A reactive response might create friction, but advanced English maintains composure. You might say, "We'd be happy to incorporate these additional elements. We may just need to revisit scope parameters and associated timelines to ensure feasibility." Notice the calm recalibration. Let's internalize that phrasing. We may need to revisit scope parameters to ensure feasibility. Repeat slowly. Negotiation is not just about saying yes or no. It is about reframing constraints into structured dialogue. Now let's transition into performance escalation communication, one of the most sensitive areas of workplace English. Sometimes performance gaps, missed deadlines, or operational inefficiencies must be addressed. Advanced communication ensures accountability without humiliation. Instead of saying, "This keeps getting delayed," you might say, "We've observed recurring timeline deviations that may require process reassessment." Notice the neutrality. Now imagine you are addressing this in a one-on-one meeting. You say, "I wanted to discuss some delivery inconsistencies and explore how we can strengthen execution reliability moving forward." This opens dialogue. Let's build this into a reflection paragraph. My intention is to identify support mechanisms that can help you meet project expectations more consistently. Repeat internally, focusing on supportive tone. Escalation communication also includes upward reporting. Suppose you need to inform leadership about operational risks. Instead of saying, "The system isn't working well," advanced English sounds like, We've identified performance limitations within the current system, infrastructure that could impact scalability. Notice analytical framing. Now extend this escalation narrative. We're currently evaluating mitigation pathways, including system optimization and vendor consultation. This communicates action. Let's internalize this structured escalation paragraph. We've flagged the issue, assessed impact exposure, and initiated corrective evaluation. Repeat slowly. Another advanced workplace communication domain involves crisis messaging, moments when unexpected disruptions occur. For example, system outages, supply chain breakdowns, or compliance risks. In such moments, clarity, calmness, and reassurance become linguistic priorities. You might say, "We're currently experiencing a temporary service disruption. Our technical teams are actively working to restore functionality." Notice composed transparency. Now extend this message. We're implementing contingency protocols to minimize operational impact while resolution efforts continue. This communicates control. Let's embed this into a guided reflection. Contingency protocols are being implemented to minimize operational impact. Repeat internally. Crisis communication often includes reassurance timelines. You might say, "We'll continue providing updates as new information becomes available." This maintains stakeholder confidence. Now imagine addressing employees during organizational uncertainty. You say, "We understand that transitions can create concern. However, leadership remains committed to transparency and stability throughout this process." This balances honesty and reassurance. Let's internalize that tone. Leadership remains committed to transparency and stability. Repeat slowly. Another advanced dimension of workplace English involves executive presence vocabulary, language that signals authority without arrogance. Executive presence is often communicated through calm decisiveness. You might hear phrases like, "Let's move forward with a focused execution plan," or "We'll prioritize initiatives that align with our long-term strategic vision." Notice directional clarity. Now imagine you are leading a strategic meeting. You say, "Our immediate focus will be strengthening operational resilience while positioning the organization for sustainable expansion." This blends stability and growth language. Let's embed this into a speaking reflection. Strengthening operational resilience while positioning for sustainable expansion. Repeat internally. Executive presence language also includes decisional closure. Instead of saying, "Let's think about it," leaders say, "We'll proceed with this direction and monitor performance indicators closely." This communicates resolution. Now expand this into a structured leadership statement. We'll implement the strategy in controlled phases, evaluate measurable outcomes, and recalibrate where necessary. Repeat slowly. As you practice negotiation, escalation, crisis, and executive communication frameworks, you begin stepping into a higher tier of workplace fluency. Because at this level, language is not just communication, it is risk management, expectation alignment, and leadership signaling. And the more you internalize these patterns, the more naturally you begin speaking with composure, authority, and professional confidence, even in the most complex workplace scenarios. As workplace fluency continues to deepen, another meaningful dimension begins to emerge: the language of mentoring, coaching, and professional development. Because in advanced professional environments, communication is not only used to manage tasks, it is used to grow people, guide performance, and cultivate leadership in others. Imagine you are supporting a junior colleague who is navigating their first major project. Basic communication might sound instructional, but advanced workplace English introduces encouragement, structure, and developmental framing. You might say, "You've made strong progress on the foundational components. Now let's focus on refining the analytical depth to strengthen the overall impact." Notice how feedback is layered with affirmation. Let's slow this into a reflective speaking exercise. Repeat internally. You've made strong progress. Now let's focus on refining the analytical depth. This structure balances recognition with growth direction. Mentoring language often includes perspective expansion. You might say, as you continue developing this skill set, I'd encourage you to think not just about execution, but also about strategic implication. This shifts thinking from task to vision. Now embed this into a guided paragraph reflection. The work you're doing is valuable, and with additional strategic framing, it can influence decision-making at higher levels. Repeat slowly. Coaching communication also involves normalizing learning curves. Instead of saying, "You made an error," advanced phrasing sounds like, "Moments like this are part of the professional learning process. What matters most is how we extract insight from them." Notice the emotional intelligence. Let's internalize that supportive framing. What matters most is how we extract insight from the experience. Repeat internally. Now imagine guiding someone through time management challenges. You might say, one approach that could help is segmenting deliverables into milestone checkpoints, allowing progress visibility without last-minute pressure. This is advisory rather than corrective. Let's embed this into a speaking practice. Segmenting deliverables into milestone checkpoints allows progress visibility. Focus on coaching cadence. Mentoring language also includes empowerment statements. You might say, "I trust your judgment on this, and I'm here if you'd like to discuss strategic angles." This communicates confidence in their capability. Now imagine encouraging ownership. You say, "I'd like you to lead the next phase discussion. It will be a valuable opportunity to strengthen your presentation confidence." This frames responsibility as development. Let's internalize this leadership coaching reflection. Leading this discussion will strengthen your presentation confidence. Repeat slowly. Another dimension of advanced workplace communication involves performance motivation, sustaining team energy, particularly during demanding project cycles. Imagine your team is approaching a high-pressure deadline. Instead of saying, "We need to work harder," advanced language motivates collectively. You might say, "We're entering the final execution stretch, and the momentum we've built positions us strongly for success." Notice the energy framing. Let's embed this into repetition. The momentum we've built positions us strongly for success. Repeat internally. Motivational communication also acknowledges effort. You might say, "I want to recognize the commitment everyone has demonstrated. The collaboration has been exceptional." This reinforces morale. Now extend this into a longer team encouragement paragraph. While the workload has been intensive, your resilience and teamwork have ensured steady progress toward our shared objective. Repeat slowly. Advanced leaders also motivate through vision reminders. You might say, "The work we're doing here contributes directly to long-term organizational growth, and that impact is significant." This connects effort to purpose. Let's internalize that reflective motivation statement. This work contributes directly to long-term organizational growth. Focus on inspirational tone. Another advanced communication environment involves team-building dialogue, strengthening interpersonal trust through intentional language. Imagine welcoming a new team member. Instead of saying, "Welcome to the team," you might say, "We're excited to have you join us. Your experience will add valuable perspective to our collaborative environment." Notice the inclusive warmth. Now expand this into a guided reflection. Your experience will add valuable perspective to our collaborative environment. Repeat internally. Team-building communication also includes psychological safety language. You might say, "Please feel comfortable sharing ideas. Every perspective contributes to stronger outcomes." This invites openness. Let's embed this into practice. Every perspective contributes to stronger outcomes. Repeat slowly. Now imagine facilitating a retrospective discussion after project completion. You say, "I'd like us to reflect on what worked well and where we see opportunities for enhancement." This invites balanced reflection. Let's internalize that facilitation phrasing. Reflect on what worked well and where we see opportunities for enhancement. Repeat internally. Advanced workplace English also involves celebrating milestones. Recognition strengthens engagement. You might say, "Reaching this milestone reflects the team's strategic coordination and execution excellence." Notice achievement framing. Now extend this into a reflection paragraph. This accomplishment highlights the strength of our collaboration and planning discipline. Repeat slowly. Another mentoring scenario involves guiding career growth conversations. Suppose a colleague asks for advice. You might say, "As you think about your next career phase, I'd encourage you to seek opportunities that expand both leadership exposure and decision-making responsibility." This frames progression strategically. Let's embed this into repetition. Seek opportunities that expand leadership exposure. Focus on developmental tone. Career coaching language often includes long-term vision framing. You might say, "Your current trajectory positions you well for future strategic roles if you continue building cross-functional expertise." Notice foresight language. Now internalize this reflection paragraph. Building cross-functional expertise will strengthen your long-term leadership readiness. Repeat slowly. As you absorb mentoring, coaching, motivation, and team-building communication frameworks, you begin recognizing another truth about advanced workplace English. Fluency at this level is not just about sounding professional, it is about influencing growth, inspiring performance, and cultivating collaborative cultures through intentional language. Because in professional ecosystems, words do more than communicate tasks. They shape confidence, trust, and collective progress. And the more you practice these developmental conversation structures, the more naturally you begin stepping into leadership presence, not through authority, but through empowering communication. As workplace communication continues expanding into more advanced territory, another essential dimension begins to shape your fluency: the language of training, onboarding, and knowledge transfer. because in professional environments, information must not only be understood, it must be transmitted clearly, systematically, and sustainably, so that organizational knowledge does not remain with individuals, but becomes embedded within the collective structure. Imagine you are onboarding a new team member into an operational workflow. A basic communicator might say, "I'll show you how this works," but advanced workplace English structures the learning journey more intentionally. You might say, "I'll walk you through the end-to-end process, beginning with initial intake, followed by documentation validation, and concluding with approval routing protocols." Notice how the explanation is sequenced. Let's slow this into a guided speaking reflection. Repeat internally. I'll walk you through the end-to-end process. Focus on the phrase end-to-end, commonly used in training environments. Onboarding language often includes reassurance framing. You might say, "There's a learning curve initially, but once you've navigated the system a few times, the workflow becomes much more intuitive. This reduces anxiety." Now embed this into a reflective paragraph. Take your time exploring each module. Accuracy is more important than speed during the early stages. Repeat slowly. Training communication also requires clarity around expectations. Instead of saying, "You should learn this quickly," advanced phrasing sounds like, "Over the next 2 weeks, our objective is to build your familiarity with core systems and reporting structures." Notice measurable framing. Let's internalize this timeline communication. Our objective is to build familiarity with core systems. Repeat internally. Another important dimension of onboarding language involves resource guidance. You might say, "You'll find reference documentation within the shared knowledge repository. I'd encourage you to review the workflow manuals as you progress." This promotes self-sufficiency. Now expand this into practice reflection. The shared knowledge repository contains process documentation and escalation pathways. Repeat slowly. Knowledge transfer conversations often arise during role transitions. When responsibilities shift between employees, imagine you're handing over a project. Instead of saying, "Here's what you need to know," advanced communication sounds like, "I'd like to ensure a seamless transition, so I'll outline current priorities, stakeholder expectations, and pending deliverables." Notice continuity framing. Let's embed this into repetition. I'd like to ensure a seamless transition. Focus on transfer tone. You might continue. I'll also highlight potential risk areas, along with mitigation strategies already in motion. This supports preparedness. Now internalize that reflective paragraph. Highlighting potential risk areas ensures continuity of execution. Repeat slowly. Another advanced workplace communication layer involves institutional knowledge sharing, preserving insights gained from experience. Imagine facilitating a lessons learned workshop. You say, "This session is designed to capture operational insights that can inform future project execution frameworks." Notice long-term learning framing. Let's embed this into a speaking exercise. Capture operational insights to inform future frameworks. Repeat internally. You might continue. Our objective is to institutionalize best practices while minimizing recurrence of identified challenges. This language reflects organizational maturity. Now internalize this reflection. Institutionalizing best practices strengthens organizational capability. Repeat slowly. Training communication also includes procedural reinforcement. For example, reminding teams about compliance steps. Instead of saying, "Don't forget the approvals," advanced phrasing sounds like, "Please ensure all documentation undergoes regulatory review prior to submission." Notice formal clarity. Let's embed this into repetition. Ensure all documentation undergoes regulatory review prior to submission. Focus on compliance tone. Another onboarding scenario involves system training. You might say, "This platform serves as our centralized reporting interface, consolidating performance metrics across departments. This explains system purpose. Now expand this into practice reflection." Centralized reporting interfaces enhance data visibility and decision alignment. Repeat slowly. Training communication also requires patience language. You might reassure a new colleague by saying, "Feel free to reach out as questions arise." Ongoing clarification is part of the onboarding journey. This encourages engagement. Let's internalize this supportive phrasing. Ongoing clarification is part of the onboarding journey. Repeat internally. Now imagine you are conducting a live training workshop. You say, "We'll begin with foundational concepts, then gradually progress into advanced application scenarios." This structures learning progression. Let's embed this into guided repetition. Begin with foundational concepts, then progress into advanced application. Focus on instructional rhythm. Advanced workplace trainers also use scenario-based learning language. You might say, "Let's explore a real-world case study to contextualize these process steps." This enhances retention. Now internalize this reflection paragraph. Real-world case studies contextualize procedural understanding. Repeat slowly. Another institutional communication environment involves policy communication. Organizations regularly update protocols, compliance frameworks, and operational guidelines. Instead of saying, "The policy changed," advanced language sounds like, "We've implemented updated governance protocols to strengthen regulatory alignment." Notice institutional tone. Let's embed this into repetition. Updated governance protocols strengthen regulatory alignment. Focus on policy vocabulary. Now imagine communicating procedural change to teams. You say, "We'll be conducting orientation sessions to ensure seamless adoption of the revised framework." This communicates transition support. Let's internalize this structured phrasing. Orientation sessions will ensure seamless adoption. Repeat slowly. Another advanced workplace communication scenario involves documenting knowledge for future teams. You might say, "We're compiling a comprehensive process handbook to standardize operational execution." This ensures sustainability. Now expand this into reflection. Standardizing operational execution enhances organizational efficiency. Repeat internally. As your exposure to training, onboarding, and institutional communication grows, you begin realizing that advanced workplace English operates not just in conversations, but in knowledge ecosystems. Language becomes the infrastructure through which expertise flows, processes stabilize, and organizational memory is preserved. And as you practice these structured training and transfer dialogues, your fluency evolves beyond individual performance into organizational contribution. Because at this level, you are not just communicating tasks, You are shaping systems, enabling continuity, and strengthening collective capability through language precision. As workplace communication continues expanding into more advanced dimensions, another powerful fluency layer begins to emerge: the language of professional networking, relationship cultivation, and reputation building. Because in modern organizational ecosystems, opportunities rarely flow only through formal performance. They also travel through professional relationships, credibility signals, and conversational influence. Imagine attending an internal networking session or a cross-departmental strategy forum. Conversations here are not task-focused. They are relationship-oriented, yet still deeply professional in tone. Instead of opening with casual language, advanced workplace English frames professional curiosity. You might say, "I've been following the initiatives your team has been leading, particularly the digital transformation work. It's been generating strong organizational impact." Notice the specificity. Let's slow this into a reflective speaking exercise. Repeat internally. "I've been following the initiatives your team has been leading." Focus on respectful acknowledgement. Networking language often includes appreciation framing. You might continue. "The integration approach you implemented has significantly improved workflow visibility across departments. This signals informed respect." Now internalize this reflection paragraph. Your integration approach has improved workflow visibility. Repeat slowly. Professional networking also involves articulating your own role without sounding self-promotional. Instead of saying, "I manage projects," advanced language sounds like, "I currently oversee cross-functional project execution, focusing on operational alignment and delivery optimization." Notice elevated framing. Let's embed this into guided repetition. "I oversee cross-functional project execution. Focus on leadership tone." Networking conversations often transition into collaboration exploration. You might say, "I believe there may be opportunities for our teams to collaborate, particularly where operational processes intersect." This signals strategic thinking. Now expand this into a reflection paragraph. "Collaborative intersections between our teams could unlock efficiency gains." Repeat internally. Another dimension of workplace networking involves external relationship, communication, engaging with partners, vendors, or industry peers. Imagine meeting a strategic partner. You say, "We value the partnership we've built, and we're keen to explore avenues for deeper strategic alignment moving forward." Notice long-term framing. Let's internalize that phrase. Explore avenues for deeper strategic alignment. Repeat slowly. Reputation building language also includes reliability signaling. You might say, "Our organization places strong emphasis on delivery integrity and stakeholder trust." This communicates brand credibility. Now embed this into reflection. Delivery integrity and stakeholder trust remain our priorities. Repeat internally. Professional reputation is often reinforced through follow-up communication. After a networking conversation, you might write or say, "I appreciated our discussion earlier. Your insights into operational scalability were particularly valuable." This demonstrates engagement. Let's internalize this relational phrasing. Your insights into operational scalability were valuable. Repeat slowly. Another networking scenario involves industry events. You might say, "It's always insightful to exchange perspectives with professionals navigating similar transformation journeys. Notice peer-level respect. Now expand this into a reflective paragraph. Exchanging perspectives strengthens collective industry learning. Repeat internally. Advanced workplace English also includes the language of personal branding, how you communicate your professional identity. Instead of saying, "I'm good at problem solving," advanced phrasing sounds like, "I specialize in identifying operational inefficiencies and implementing scalable process solutions." Notice capability framing. Let's embed this into guided repetition. I specialize in identifying operational inefficiencies. Focus on expertise tone. Personal branding language also includes growth trajectory articulation. You might say, "My focus currently is expanding strategic leadership exposure while continuing to deepen operational expertise." This signals ambition with humility. Now internalize this reflective paragraph. Expanding strategic leadership exposure remains a key focus. Repeat slowly. Another dimension of networking communication involves referral and endorsement language. You might say, "I'd be happy to connect you with our analytics team. Their insights could add valuable perspective to your initiative." This facilitates collaboration. Let's embed this into repetition. "I'd be happy to connect you with our team." Focus on supportive tone. Reputation communication also involves gratitude expression. Instead of saying, "Thanks for your help," advanced workplace English sounds like, "I truly appreciate the guidance you provided. It added meaningful clarity to our approach." Notice depth. Now internalize this appreciation reflection. Your guidance added meaningful clarity. Repeat slowly. Another networking layer involves maintaining long-term professional connections. You might say, "I'd welcome the opportunity to stay connected as our respective initiatives evolve." This sustains relationship continuity. Let's embed this into guided reflection. Staying connected as initiatives evolve. Repeat internally. Professional networking also intersects with opportunity conversations. You might say, "If opportunities arise where our expertise could complement each other, I'd be very interested in exploring collaboration." Notice openness without pressure. Now expand this into a reflective paragraph. Complementary expertise creates strong collaboration potential. Repeat slowly. As your networking fluency strengthens, you begin recognizing that advanced workplace English is not only operational, it is relational. It shapes perception, builds trust, and positions you within professional ecosystems. Because influence in workplace environments often travels through conversations long before it appears in formal structures. And the more intentionally you practice these networking, reputation, and collaboration dialogues, the more naturally you cultivate professional presence, visibility, and opportunity alignment. As workplace communication continues progressing into more strategic dimensions, another essential layer of fluency begins to take shape: the language of decision-making, planning, and organizational foresight. Because in professional environments, conversations increasingly revolve not around what is happening now, but around what should happen next, and why. Advanced workplace English becomes especially powerful when discussing future direction because decisions are rarely presented as isolated actions. They are framed within long-term vision, operational sustainability, and measurable outcomes. Imagine you are participating in a strategic planning session. A colleague asks, "What direction should we prioritize for next quarter?" A basic response might sound uncertain, but advanced workplace communication introduces structured foresight. You might say, from a strategic standpoint, prioritizing client retention initiatives may yield stronger long-term value than short-term acquisition expansion. Notice how this response introduces perspective framing. Let's slow this into a guided speaking reflection. Repeat internally. From a strategic standpoint, prioritizing client retention initiatives may yield stronger long-term value. Focus on analytical tone. Strategic conversations often involve comparative evaluation language. You might continue. While acquisition drives growth, visibility, retention strengthens revenue stability and lifetime value metrics. This demonstrates balanced reasoning. Now internalize this reflective paragraph. Retention strengthens revenue stability and lifetime value. Repeat slowly. Decision-making dialogue also requires risk assessment vocabulary. Suppose leadership is evaluating an expansion proposal. You might say, before committing to this expansion, we should assess market volatility, operational readiness, and resource sustainability. Notice multi-factor evaluation. Let's embed this into repetition. Assess market volatility, operational readiness, and resource sustainability. Focus on structured analysis. Advanced speakers often introduce scenario forecasting. You might say, if demand projections hold steady, scaling infrastructure now could position us advantageously for future market capture. This frames proactive timing. Now expand this into a reflective planning paragraph. Scaling infrastructure ahead of demand growth enhances competitive readiness. Repeat internally. Strategic workplace communication also includes contingency planning language. You might say, while we remain optimistic about projected performance, we're also developing fallback strategies to mitigate unforeseen disruptions. Notice balanced foresight. Let's internalize that phrasing. Developing fallback strategies to mitigate unforeseen disruptions. Repeat slowly. Another advanced decision communication structure involves stakeholder alignment. You might say, before finalizing the roadmap, I'd recommend gathering cross-functional input to ensure enterprise-wide alignment. This ensures inclusivity. Now embed this into reflection. Gather cross-functional input to ensure alignment. Repeat internally. Planning discussions often include resource allocation language. Instead of saying, "We need more staff," advanced phrasing sounds like, "Scaling this initiative effectively will require strategic resource augmentation." Notice executive tone. Let's slow this into repetition. Strategic resource augmentation will support initiative scaling. Focus on planning cadence. Another dimension of high-level workplace communication involves forecasting performance outcomes. You might say, based on historical performance patterns, we anticipate moderate growth acceleration in the upcoming cycle. This blends data and projection. Now internalize this reflection paragraph. Historical performance patterns indicate growth acceleration. Repeat slowly. Forecasting language also includes cautionary framing. You might continue. However, external economic variables may influence trajectory stability. This signals analytical maturity. Let's embed this into guided repetition. External economic variables may influence trajectory stability. Focus on balanced foresight. Strategic planning discussions often transition into prioritization dialogue. You might say, given resource constraints, we'll need to sequence initiatives based on impact potential and execution feasibility. Notice prioritization logic. Now expand this into reflection. Sequencing initiatives based on impact potential ensures strategic focus. Repeat internally. Another advanced workplace communication layer involves innovation roadmap discussions. Suppose you're discussing product evolution. You might say, our innovation roadmap should balance incremental enhancements with disruptive capability development. Notice dual innovation framing. Let's internalize this phrase. Balancing incremental enhancements with disruptive capability development. Repeat slowly. Planning language also includes milestone structuring. You might say, we'll establish quarterly performance checkpoints to monitor execution progress and recalibrate direction where necessary. This signals governance discipline. Now embed this into repetition. Quarterly performance checkpoints will monitor execution progress. Focus on structured oversight. Another strategic communication scenario involves investment justification dialogue. You might say, allocating capital toward digital transformation infrastructure will strengthen long-term operational resilience. Notice investment framing. Let's expand this into reflection. Digital transformation infrastructure strengthens operational resilience. Repeat internally. Decision-making fluency also requires communicating trade-offs transparently. You might say, while this initiative offers strong growth potential, it may temporarily divert resources from existing operational priorities. Notice balanced disclosure. Now internalize this structured reflection. Growth potential must be weighed against operational diversion. Repeat slowly. Strategic workplace conversations also involve long-range vision language. You might say, our 5-year outlook centers on sustainable expansion, innovation leadership, and global market positioning. Notice visionary framing. Let's embed this into guided repetition. Sustainable expansion and innovation leadership define our outlook. Focus on aspirational tone. Another dimension of planning dialogue includes performance benchmarking. You might say, we'll measure success against clearly defined performance indicators to ensure accountability. This communicates governance. Now internalize this reflection paragraph. Clearly defined performance indicators ensure accountability. Repeat slowly. As you practice these decision-making, forecasting, and strategic planning frameworks, your workplace fluency begins transitioning from operational conversation into executive dialogue. Because at this level, you are not merely discussing tasks, you are shaping direction, evaluating risk, and influencing organizational future. And the more you internalize these planning and foresight communication structures, the more naturally you begin speaking with strategic authority, analytical clarity, and visionary confidence. As workplace communication continues advancing into its most refined levels, another deeply important dimension begins to shape professional fluency. The language of workplace culture, organizational values, diversity awareness, and ethical alignment. Because modern professional environments are not driven solely by productivity metrics, they are also guided by principles, inclusivity, and shared responsibility. Advanced workplace English in this context requires emotional intelligence, cultural sensitivity, and the ability to communicate respect across diverse perspectives. Imagine you are participating in a company-wide discussion about workplace culture enhancement. A basic response might sound general, but advanced communication introduces intentional value language. You might say, fostering an inclusive workplace culture requires sustained commitment to equitable opportunity, open dialogue, and mutual respect across all organizational levels. Notice how the phrasing elevates the message. Let's slow this into a guided speaking reflection. Repeat internally. Fostering an inclusive workplace culture requires sustained commitment. Focus on principled tone. Workplace culture dialogue often includes psychological safety language. You might say, creating an environment where individuals feel comfortable sharing perspectives is essential for innovation and collaboration. Notice the connection between culture and performance. Now internalize this reflective paragraph. Psychological safety enables stronger collaboration and innovation. Repeat slowly. Another advanced communication dimension involves diversity and inclusion discussions. You might say, diverse perspectives enrich problem-solving capability, enabling organizations to approach challenges with multidimensional insight. This frames diversity as strategic strength. Let's embed this into repetition. Diverse perspectives enrich problem-solving capability. Focus on inclusive framing. Workplace fluency also includes addressing unconscious bias thoughtfully. Instead of accusatory language, professionals use awareness phrasing. You might say, recognizing unconscious bias allows us to refine decision-making processes and ensure fairness in opportunity distribution. Notice developmental tone. Now expand this into reflection. Refining decision-making processes ensures fairness. Repeat internally. Another cultural communication environment involves team inclusivity facilitation. Suppose you are leading a meeting. You say, I'd like to ensure every voice is heard before we move toward conclusion. This encourages participation. Let's embed this into guided repetition. Ensuring every voice is heard strengthens decision quality. Focus on facilitative tone. Organizational values communication also includes ethical decision language. Imagine discussing a business opportunity that raises compliance concerns. Instead of saying, it might not be allowed, advanced phrasing sounds like, we need to evaluate this opportunity through both regulatory and ethical governance frameworks. Notice principled structure. Now internalize this reflection paragraph. Evaluating decisions through ethical governance frameworks. Repeat slowly. Ethical workplace communication also involves accountability transparency. You might say, maintaining integrity in our processes safeguards long-term organizational credibility. This connects ethics to reputation. Let's embed this into repetition. Integrity safeguards long-term organizational credibility. Focus on trust language. Another advanced dialogue scenario involves addressing workplace concerns sensitively. Suppose an employee raises a cultural inclusion issue. You might respond, thank you for bringing this forward. It's important that we continue strengthening inclusivity across all engagement platforms. Notice respectful acknowledgement. Now expand this into reflection. Strengthening inclusivity across engagement platforms remains a priority. Repeat internally. Workplace culture communication also includes recognition of diverse contributions. You might say, our collective success reflects the varied expertise and perspectives that each team member brings. This reinforces belonging. Let's internalize that phrasing. Collective success reflects varied expertise and perspectives. Repeat slowly. Another dimension involves communicating organizational mission alignment. You might say, our values guide not only what we deliver, but how we deliver it. Notice ethical identity framing. Now embed this into repetition. Our values guide both delivery and conduct. Focus on principled cadence. Cultural fluency also includes conflict sensitivity language. Instead of escalating tension, advanced speakers use resolution framing. You might say, let's approach this conversation with openness and a shared commitment to understanding. Notice calming tone. Let's internalize this reflection paragraph. A shared commitment to understanding strengthens resolution. Repeat slowly. Another workplace culture scenario involves employee engagement communication. You might say, sustaining engagement requires recognizing contributions, encouraging dialogue, and supporting professional well-being. This reflects holistic leadership. Now embed this into repetition. Recognizing contributions sustains engagement. Focus on motivational empathy. Organizational culture communication also includes change adaptation dialogue. Suppose cultural initiatives are being introduced. You might say, embedding these values into daily operations will require both structural support and behavioral reinforcement. Notice implementation framing. Let's internalize that phrasing. Behavioral reinforcement supports cultural embedding. Repeat slowly. Another advanced dimension involves social responsibility communication. You might say, our organizational impact extends beyond business performance into community engagement and environmental stewardship. This broadens purpose. Now expand this into reflection. Organizational impact extends into community and environment. Repeat internally. As you continue absorbing workplace culture, diversity, and ethical communication frameworks, your fluency expands beyond operational competence into principled leadership dialogue. Because advanced workplace English at this level reflects not only intelligence, but integrity, empathy, and respect for collective progress. And the more intentionally you practice these culture-centered conversations, the more naturally your communication begins reflecting not just professional capability, but organizational citizenship. As workplace communication reaches its most advanced and refined stage, another meaningful dimension begins to unfold: the language of long-term career vision, leadership identity, and professional legacy. Because at this level, conversations are no longer limited to tasks, projects, or performance cycles. They begin reflecting direction, purpose, and the impact you aim to create within your professional journey. Imagine you are participating in a leadership development dialogue, perhaps during a strategic review or a career progression discussion with senior management. Basic responses often remain surface level, but advanced workplace English introduces reflective depth. You might say, as I look ahead in my professional path, my focus is on expanding my strategic leadership capacity while continuing to deliver operational excellence. Notice how the statement balances ambition with grounded contribution. Let's slow this into a guided speaking reflection. Repeat internally. Expanding my strategic leadership capacity while continuing to deliver operational excellence. Focus on forward vision tone. Career vision communication often includes growth trajectory framing. You might continue. I'm particularly interested in roles that allow me to influence organizational direction, mentor emerging talent, and contribute to scalable transformation initiatives. This communicates multidimensional aspiration. Now internalize this reflective paragraph, influencing organizational direction and mentoring emerging talent. Repeat slowly. Another dimension of advanced career dialogue involves articulating leadership philosophy. Instead of saying, "I want to be a good leader," advanced phrasing sounds like, "I believe leadership is rooted in empowering others, fostering accountability, and creating environments where innovation can thrive." Notice principled clarity. Let's embed this into repetition. Leadership is rooted in empowering others and fostering accountability. Focus on identity framing. Professional legacy language also emerges in high-level discussions. You might say, "Beyond individual achievements, my goal is to contribute to systems that continue delivering value long after my direct involvement concludes." This reflects institutional thinking. Now expand this into reflection, contributing to systems that sustain long-term value. Repeat internally. Leadership communication also includes succession planning dialogue. Suppose you're preparing others to step into responsibilities. You might say, "Developing future leaders within the organization remains one of my most meaningful priorities." Notice developmental commitment. Let's internalize this phrasing. Developing future leaders remains a meaningful priority. Repeat slowly. Another advanced workplace communication scenario involves organizational vision alignment. You might say, "My personal career vision aligns closely with the organization's commitment to innovation, resilience, and global impact." This signals loyalty and synergy. Now embed this into guided repetition. My career vision aligns with organizational innovation and resilience. Focus on alignment tone. Career reflection dialogue also includes acknowledging formative experiences. You might say, "The projects I've led have strengthened my ability to navigate complexity, build consensus, and deliver sustainable outcomes." Notice reflective growth framing. Let's internalize this reflection paragraph. Leading complex projects has strengthened consensus-building capability. Repeat slowly. Another dimension of advanced workplace English involves mentoring future generations of professionals. You might say, "Sharing knowledge and guiding early career professionals has been one of the most rewarding aspects of my journey." This reflects contribution beyond performance. Now expand this into repetition. Guiding early career professionals remains deeply rewarding. Focus on legacy tone. Leadership communication also includes resilience narrative. You might say, "Navigating organizational challenges has reinforced the importance of adaptability, perspective, and solution-focused thinking." Notice strength framing. Let's internalize that phrasing. Adaptability and perspective shape solution-focused leadership. Repeat slowly. Another career dialogue scenario involves long-term industry impact aspirations. You might say, "I hope to contribute to shaping industry best practices particularly in areas where innovation and ethical responsibility intersect. This reflects visionary thinking. Now embed this into reflection. Shaping industry best practices through innovation and ethics. Repeat internally. Professional closing communication often returns to gratitude and collective acknowledgement. You might say, "My journey has been shaped by the guidance, collaboration, and trust of colleagues and mentors along the way." Notice humility framing. Let's internalize this final reflective paragraph. Guidance and collaboration have shaped my professional journey. Repeat slowly. As you step back and observe the full spectrum of advanced workplace communication you've practiced, you begin recognizing the transformation that has taken place. You've moved from basic conversational fluency into strategic dialogue, leadership communication, negotiation alignment, mentoring language, institutional knowledge sharing, cultural sensitivity, and visionary career articulation. Because advanced workplace English is not simply about vocabulary size, it is about communication maturity. It is the ability to speak with clarity during uncertainty, reassurance during disruption, vision during planning, and empathy during collaboration. And as you continue practicing these layered communication frameworks in your daily professional life, your confidence grows, your credibility strengthens, and your voice begins carrying not just language, but influence, trust, and leadership presence. So as you move forward, continue listening carefully, speaking thoughtfully, and refining your workplace communication with intention. Because fluency at this level is not achieved overnight, it is cultivated conversation by conversation, reflection by reflection, experience by experience. And with every professional interaction, you are shaping not only your communication skills, but your career trajectory, your leadership identity, and the legacy you will eventually leave behind in the workplaces you serve. Thank you so much for spending this time with me and for being fully present throughout this advanced workplace English journey. I truly appreciate your commitment to improving not just your vocabulary, but your confidence, clarity, and professional communication presence. Remember, fluency at the workplace is built step by step, conversation by conversation. It grows every time you choose a more thoughtful word, a more structured response, or a more professional tone. So don't rush the process. Allow yourself to practice, reflect, and gradually integrate these expressions into your daily work life. If you found this lesson helpful, make sure to subscribe to the channel and press the bell icon so you never miss upcoming lessons designed to strengthen your English fluency even further. We upload new learning episodes regularly, each one focused on helping you speak more naturally, more professionally, and more confidently. Keep practicing, keep listening, and keep believing in your progress, because every effort you make today is shaping the fluent professional voice you'll carry tomorrow. Thank you once again for learning with me, and I'll see you in the next lesson.